Good afternoon, everyone. This is Sunday, October 24th. And as you all know, I do my review show the following day from a Aew Dynamite standpoint. And once again, for the second week in a row, we've had a Saturday night show. Started at 8 p.m., ended at 10. And now I've got my issues with the show, but it's not from the wrestling standpoint itself. It is the entirety of the booking process that we witnessed. One women's match and one women's promo. That is it. And this from a company that said they were going to take the women's division a lot more seriously. Now, when it comes to Britt Baker as champion, they've done that. They've given her TV time. They've made sure that they elevate her to the proper status that she deserves as a champion. But although it was a good match between Penelope Ford and Ruby Soho, it was the only one. So I could be one of those guys that comes on here screaming and yelling and ranting and just making it a complete shit show of verbal diarrhea when it comes to the lack of something on a wrestling show. But the overall, however, was made up for with wrestling, which is something we don't get very much from the other product. So you'll notice I shit on WWE a lot, but when I've got an issue with AEW, I say what's on my mind. Now, for a company that stated that they were going to elevate the women's division in wrestling itself, they have failed to do so. And that is something I don't enjoy. I really don't. I expect a lot more when it comes to the women's division AEW. I expect them to be elevating all their women, and maybe they're getting more time on AEW Dark and Elevation, but as you've seen on Rampage, I believe there's only one women's match as well. I could have been fine with a tag team match in the women's division last night as well, but they gave us one and then a promo. Not exactly what I was looking for a company that has promised to elevate the women here in the wrestling world. But that aside, AEW, a very good show last night. Something that kept you interested and engaged. And even going into the first match, it was a good, solid match. I enjoyed every minute of it. I didn't think I would see Dustin Rhodes and Bryan Danielson mix it up as well as they did. I figured it would be a lot slower pace due to the age of Dustin Rhodes, but it was a solid match. And then main event as well, far exceeded expectations and led us there. We had a horrible bump, a little miscalculation on a moonsault by Lance Archer that was very sickening to watch. Landed right on top of his head, and if the guy did not sustain an injury, I'd be shocked. That was full contact, landed right on his head. He's lucky he didn't break his neck, and hoping that it did not put him on the shelf for a long period of time. Now, I do seriously believe that Lance Archer could be used in a lot more of a prominent role. He comes down and just beats someone up and leaves. I figured that would bring him further up in the status of AEW, but they've had a lot of signings. They've had to retweak a lot of things as of late, and with a new fledgling company such as AEW, things are going to have to change on the fly a lot when they bring in all this new talent. You know, as you guys witnessed about 2 weeks ago, Bobby Fish debuted, and you know, they're trying to give him airtime. Andrade just recently debuted. He said he's been with the company for 6 months. I have not been watching solidly for months, so I was a little bit out of the loop. I knew when he debuted, but I couldn't remember how long it was. So 6 months, I guess he's been in the company. They've dropped the ball on him, bits here and there. bringing him in with Vicky Guerrero at first and then swapping over to Chavo. I'm hoping they finally figure out what they're going to actually do with him and make it right, because I don't want to see a guy's talents like that wasted. He signed a 3-year contract with AEW, so they've got 3 years to bring him to a status that is going to satisfy Andrade. We all know that he left WWE because they misused him so often and so much that he's in desperate need of that change and a company that's going to have that trust in him to give him the ball and let him carry it for a while. But let's get on with it. October 23rd, 2021, AEW Dynamite. And the show would open up with Bryan Danielson taking on Dustin Rhodes in the Eliminator tournament for the world title of AEW. Definitely two Hall of Famers right here, Bryan Danielson and Dustin Rhodes, and I do apologize that I keep on messing it up. Bryan Danielson, going by his name here, that he's, in the Indies, he made it big, and people wanted to see him. Now, when they started the match off, they kept it fairly basic. It was standard lockups throughout the opening of the bout, standard takedowns, lockups. But Danielson put Rhodes in a bow and arrow stretch, which I found a little bit sloppy. But he's facing a guy that's 6'6", 230 pounds. So it'd be a little bit awkward for a shorter guy like Danielson to slap in a bow and arrow on. But being so close to the ropes, he applied the submission in the corner. Rhodes was able to get to the ropes very easily. The hold was broken up really quickly by the referee, and the match would progress. Now, Rhodes would nail him with a few hard left hands, but Bryan knocked him out of the ring and hit a suicide dive, which is always nice to see from Danielson. He's always going to that extra mile, showcasing the fans what he could do, and WWE did not allow. Now, we've seen him do suicide dives in WWE, but his abilities are really being showcased in AEW, which I like. Now, Dustin hit a senton from the apron for a 2 count following that suicide dive. Rhodes brought Danielson to the top rope, hit a huge, and I've got to say, beautiful superplex. Got a near fall, but the American Dragon would start a sequence, but Rhodes hit his trademark snap power slam to stop him in his tracks, and the match would continue. It would become more fast-paced. The two men would trade holds off and on throughout the matchup. When Danielson slapped on the label lock, Rhodes was able to get to the ropes, breaking the hold. He stomped Rhodes' head a few times before setting him up for the running knee. Rhodes turned him inside out with a huge clothesline, spiked him with a pile driver for a close 2 count. And if you didn't watch it, you've got to watch how Dustin set up the pile driver. The double underhook. And at first it was like, okay, what's he going for here? And hit that beautiful spike pile driver. I did enjoy it. Gotta love that about AEW. They are playing, for the most part, safe, but they're utilizing moves that WWE has limited the wrestlers from using. Now, Danielson was able to score the win with a guillotine after the ref called for the bell once Rhodes passed out. And what I liked a lot about this matchup, it was very well put together by these two men. They started the match off with a handshake, showing that mutual respect for one another. And yes, there is a big generation gap between Rhodes and Danielson, but they were able to mesh those two styles together very well. And it gave a very good opening bout, and I was actually surprised that the opening bout was as good as it was. I love Dustin Rhodes. Don't get twisted about it. I'm not putting the man down, but he is 50 years old. I didn't think he could move as well as he could against a guy like Bryan Danielson. Now, there was a few minor timing issues and missteps, but an outstanding matchup to open up the show. Two veterans putting their reputations on the line and putting on a spectacular performance. Rhodes, you could tell, you know, he's 50 years old. He appeared a little slower at times, but it helped tell the story of an aging superstar that can still go in the ring, but also shows his limitations as well. Danielson has yet to lose a match in AEW, and they point that out in commentary quite often. Now, it's going to be interesting to see which star finally hands him his first loss. I don't know. It can't just be anyone. I don't think it can just be anyone. It has to be someone that can match his style, can match his intensity, and match his resiliency. Danielson, always been a fan favorite. I don't think that'll ever change. Even when he played a heel, he didn't really get that much hate in WWE for it. Now, as I pointed out at the top of our show, we got one women's match, and that was for the TBS Championship Tournament. It was Penelope Ford and Ruby Soho. And Ruby Soho, her talent's been well documented, well known for quite some time. Very underutilized, very misused in WWE. And yes, there was some hiccups in this match. There was some missteps. There was some timing issues. But all in all, these two women made up for it. Now, Penelope Ford, a lot of people just see her as a pretty face, a strikingly attractive body. But all in all, she's got a very good, talented skill set in that ring. It isn't just slapping on some makeup, making herself look pretty, hitting that ring, playing the model, become wrestler, and giving us a shit show of a match. Penelope Ford can go in that ring. Now, she's still very young when it comes down to it. Very, very young in her skill set. But she makes up for it when she showcases what she can do. She's very acrobatic. She is very agile. She is very flexible in that ring. And it allows her to do certain things that a lot of women don't do in that ring. The front flip into the spear in this matchup, you know, it was a good, solid matchup between these two women. I wish we could have seen more of the women on the show to showcase what they can do. Now, as soon as Soho hit the ring, Ford attacked her to try and get an unfair advantage. She threw Soho into the corner and stomped her down before hitting a front handspring into a spear, which, like I stated earlier, very impressive. And this is what I like about Penelope Ford. You know, she can move in that ring. She needs to refine her skills, hone her craft a little bit, but she's doing a great job already at this stage in the game. Soho, also known as Runaway, recovered, hit a running kick to the face for a quick 2. Then we noticed the bunny skip down her ringside. She tried to interfere, but Soho was able to avoid her. Ford took advantage of the distraction and sent her into the ring post. Now, we return from commercial break. We've seen the picture-in-picture. We've seen Soho starting to make a comeback after spending a long time on the defensive. Ford was able to leapfrog her in the corner, hit a cutter for another near fall, and a very impressive cutter as well. Ford was able to nail a spinning kick before dropping Soho with a gutbuster, but Soho was able to roll her up for a win out of nowhere. Got a very good matchup going here, and what I like about this tournament so far, I haven't seen any really quick matches. Something that isn't going to turn your stomach when you look at the grand scheme of things, because if you're going to have a tournament for a title, you got to make sure that those matches equal the status of what that title is supposed to represent. Now, as I stated, there was some sloppy moments in this match, but they made up for it with some really good spots in this matchup. Now, Soho's talent, like I stated, very well documented, very well respected among the fans as well as wrestlers in the wrestling world. But don't take away what Ford can do in that ring. She's a good up-and-coming talent, and if she doesn't get hurt too often, and if she continues to hone her skills, better herself inside that ring, she's going to make one hell of a women's champion in the end. But right now, I don't think she's ready for a big spot like that. Up next, basically a squash match. Bobby Fish taking on Anthony Greene. Bobby Fish brought in a few weeks ago. Made a big impact. Him and Bryan Danielson had a great match against each other. Now, this match served for one reason only, and that was a setup for a future bout, and that would come by form of next week's episode of Dynamite. The two former WWE superstars did battle with Anthony Greene and Bobby Fish. Now, Fish started off fast, started off strong, hit the first few strikes before Greene was able to take him down with a crossbody from the top rope. It barely slowed down Fish, though, and came back with a senton from the apron for a near fall. Now, every time Greene tried to get some momentum going, Fish was able to counter him, and it was always with some sort of brutal kick or a suplex. He was able to level Greene with a roundhouse to the head for a quick win. And like I said, it was a straight-up squash match. Greene was able to get a couple of moves in, but in the end, it was all about Fish. But after the match, Bobby Fish went straight after Greene again and just started annihilating him. Surprise, surprise, this is a way to give us CM Punk's next challenge, next opponent. And Punk would come down, save the day, saving Anthony Greene, and set up for Dynamite next week. Now, I don't want people to take this wrong. I like seeing CM Punk on the show. I do. But I also like the way they've been doing it. They're not just shooting them straight up to the top and giving him a championship title match. He's been gone for 7 years. He needs to work up to that status. He needs to make sure that his body can still take care of itself and get better inside that ring. Be able to match his talents with these younger athletes. Let's not kid ourselves. Wrestlers are nothing but athletes. And they push their bodies to the limit. Now, being in his 40s, he has slowed down a lot. But we've also seen that he can still go in that ring. But he's going to need time before he gets to that point where he can say, hey, it's time I face a champion. Doesn't matter what championship it is. It can be the TNT champion, his first go-round. And then work his way up to the world title. But in the end, I think he needs time to embrace the wrestling world first. And then once he's ready to be done and over with the happy, I'm back, let's celebrate every day like it's me returning every day. I think he needs to find that new shtick, that new gimmick that's going to put him over the top and get him ready for bigger things. It was a basic match for Bobby Fish, but like I said, it was a way to push Bobby Fish as a dangerous competitor. We all know he's got that MMA background. CM Punk's been trained in the MMA background, and, well, we've seen what happened to him when he entered UFC. Got annihilated. So that could tell a story right here between these two, and hopefully done right, it isn't just going to be a squash match for CM Punk getting retribution for Greene. Up next, I spoke about this at the top of the show. Lance Archer taking on Eddie Kingston, another one of the Eliminator challenges for that world title. Now, I didn't mind them calling Lance Archer the Murder Hawk, but tagging on the Murder Hawk monster, I don't get that. I don't see a need for it. He wants to be the Murder Hawk, just let him be the Murder Hawk. Why tag on monster? He is a monster of a man. I get it. He's a tough, brawny sumbitch. But does monster really need to be tacked onto it? It's just a little bit too gimmicky there. But interesting start to the match. Eddie Kingston did not wait for his entrance here. No, he came out as Lance Archer was making his way down to ringside. Blindside attack on Archer on the ramp, and the two brawled all the way down to ringside, around ringside. Very hard-hitting matchup, and when the tides turned and Archer took control, it was just a beatdown of epic proportions for Eddie Kingston. Now, Eddie Kingston was able to make some comebacks here. We've seen Archer try and go for the blackout early on in the match. Kingston was able to counter into a dragon sleeper. Went in a picture-in-picture. I just don't find picture-in-picture as attractive to watch. There's no sound. You can't really watch it. You've got a bigger ad kind of taken away from what you're watching. But all in all, we return from the break to see Archer hit a quick splash in the corner for a near fall. He set Kingston up for a moonsault from the top, and this is where it all went bad. Under-rotated on the moonsault. Archer missed completely, landed right on the top of his head. Good thing to see Archer start lifting his head, moving his body around a little bit on the ring, but the ref and ringside doctor checked on Archer very quickly, which I like seeing, made sure he was all right. I don't think he was all right. I don't know if this was the outcome it was supposed to be. I don't know if Kingston was supposed to be the man to take the win in the end. I haven't watched anything besides Dynamite today that would suggest otherwise, or if this was the case. But Archer rolled to the outside for a bit, tried to collect himself, rolled back in. Kingston quickly rolled him up for a win. It was a sickening landing. Very disturbing to see someone drop right on his head from that height, and with the amount of weight and size that Archer has, I'm just hoping the guy's neck can withstand such an impact. If he wasn't shortened by an inch, I'd be shocked. It was a very, very violent encounter between these two, which it should be. It's Eddie Kingston, it's Lance Archer. It never slowed down in the least until the landing of that moonsault. It might have injured Archer. We don't know yet. We'll wait for updates on the issue, and I'm pretty sure we will see updates coming our way soon if there hasn't been any already uploaded. A concussion would be probably the better outcome for the man. Anything else would probably be a bigger time on the shelf, which nobody wants to see for Lance Archer or any wrestler in that aspect. Jungle Boy versus Brandon Cutler. Let me say this. Was it needed? Absolutely not. Another squash match. Brandon Cutler, his new gimmick with the Elite, I get it. I don't know if the guy technically enjoys his role. He's playing a gimmicky little stooge for the Elite. He wrestles. He knows he's going to lose. Everyone knows he's going to lose. But it was a match that would elevate the feud between Jungle Boy and the Elite, especially the Super Click group of the pairing of the Elite. Jungle Boy obviously didn't wait long to get into action. He immediately clotheslined Brandon Cutler out of the ring, nailed him with a suicide dive. Cutler slapped him across the face. Jungle Boy returned that slap, 4 slaps actually, of his own, and hit a power bomb. He locked in the snare trap for the quickest win of the night. Like I said, straight up squash match, very similar to what we've seen from Bobby Fish's match. Now, Jungle Boy said he was still ready to go. He had a whole lot of energy left in him. Called out the other members of the Elite so he could face them. Nobody came out at the beginning, so he slapped on the snare trap once again on Cutler. Adam Cole finally came out and called JB an embarrassment. He offered to fight Jungle Boy right there, right then, and began to make his way down to ringside. Now, Jungle Boy knocked him off the apron, but from behind, the Young Bucks appeared and, well, like they say, out of nowhere, delivered a double super kick. Taking down Jungle Boy, they held him up for the BTE trigger on the stage after they dragged his ass up there, and then allowed Cole to hit another knee to the head. They put him through a table in the end, and such was the end of that segment. And the distance, the height that Jungle Boy went into the air off the stage through those tables, amazing distance they got. Really looked good. Jungle Boy, always a fan favorite, and a lot in his future. And a feud like this, especially one with Adam Cole, I think will elevate him a great deal, as well as Adam Cole. These two have very, very driven attitudes, and their styles in the ring, although not the same, they're going to be a nice meld and a nice mesh to really put on a good show for us. I can't wait for it. Can't wait to see it. Will there be interference by the Elite? Of course there will. There always is. But all in all, the match, like I said, squash match. It was simply there to elevate the feud between Jungle Boy and the Elite. That's it. We go on to our main event, Malachi Black versus Cody Rhodes. And it was very obvious who was going to walk away the winner. This is the third match between these two. The first encounter, Cody Rhodes was knocked out in seconds. The win going to Malachi Black. The second go-around, not much difference. It was a little bit longer, but in the end, Malachi Black stood tall again. This is all about redemption for Cody Rhodes. This is all about going on a journey, trying to find himself, and if he still had that passion for the wrestling world, that, clearly was nothing but storyline, kayfabe, if you want. And, this was another story in that. Now, is this the end of the feud? I don't know. I hope not, because Malachi Black owned Cody Rhodes the first two go-rounds. We seen and we heard the boos even in this match for Cody. They were more behind Malachi Black than they were behind Cody. Cody got very mixed reactions from the fans here. But all in all, intensity. We seen the crossroads through a table from the apron. Now, in my opinion, it looked like it did more damage to Cody than it did to Malachi. But all in all, it was there for one intended use, and that was for blood. And both men, you seen them under the apron. Both, you obviously knew they were juicing. And, such is the way of the wrestling world. But they used to be able to do these little, they used to be able to juice themselves a little bit more secretively. It wasn't so obvious, and both of them were very obvious in this when they juice themselves. But, you take it for what it's worth. It still adds that effect. It still adds that holy shit moment, and there was a lot of that going through this match. We seen Armed Anderson, as a lot of people have been calling him since that whole Glock promo he cut. But Arn Anderson's, for the most part, paced at ringside, but did get involved. Now, you could jokingly say looked like it was very hard for him to resist pulling out his Glock as he watched the action, but it was what it was. And Arn Anderson at ringside, very good. Now, Rhodes grabbed a chair while Brock Anderson and Lee Johnson made their way to ringside. Black managed to maintain the upper hand while Brock put the chair back under the ring. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to say thank you to my daughter for bringing me a Timmy's coffee. Thank you very much, Zach. But Brock put the chair back under the ring. We returned from break to see Rhodes put Black through a table with crossroads, as I talked about earlier. Black was busted open from the impact. He shoved Rhodes into the ring post to bust him open too, which obviously did not happen. He wasn't bleeding until he put his head underneath the apron. Now, Andrade El Idolo came out, added some support, but and Arn Anderson planted his assistant with a spine buster. Black took Arn out with a while Pac ran down to fight Andrade to the back. The Dutch Destroyer hit a moonsault, but Rhodes immediately got to his feet, hit his finisher for a close 2 count. Black was able to hit a diving double stomp and a German suplex for another near fall, but Rhodes hit his finisher a few times, and then a Tiger Driver for the pin. A very good way to close off the match. I don't know if I agree fully with Cody Rhodes winning again. We knew that it was going to happen. It was his path of redemption. We knew that he was in the end going to prevail, trying to win back the fans in the process. But there was such a mixed review of his win as well as his entrance. I don't know if the fans perceive him as that babyface. I know he said in interviews that he did not want to go heel. He wants to stay the babyface until his career's over. But when you're looking at the reactions as you have, there comes a point where you got to say, okay, let's sit down and think about this. How can we go about it? And I think the Malachi Black storyline would have been the perfect situation. If Malachi Black would have destroyed him again, now, not as quickly, not as fluidly as the first and the second time, but this third time, a great, outstanding match like we've seen, but in the end, Malachi Black prevails once again, including all the distractions on the outside that we've seen with Andrade, his assistant, Arn Anderson, Brock Anderson, Lee at ringside, and still Malachi Black stands tall at the end. I think that would have been the perfect way for Cody Rhodes to just kind of lose his shit a little bit. And at the end, not only attack Malachi Black, but attack Arn Anderson and the Nightmare Crew, and really push the envelope of him going straight up heel. Because I think in the end, the fans actually enjoy Cody a little bit more as a heel than they do as a babyface. That's just my opinion, however. I've always enjoyed watching Dustin, and Cody in the ring. They've all got a unique talent in that ring. Their styles are always different. And to see Dustin changing his ways as he's getting older, adding more to his repertoire, seeing what Cody can still do in that ring, it is a family business when it comes to the Rhodes, and they make sure they stay on top of their game. And right now, to stay on top of his game, I think Cody Rhodes needs to go straight up heel, and in a bad way. But that's my take on it. That's my opinion. I don't know if that many people agree with it. But this was the review of Dynamite. These were my opinions. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you stuck out to the end and you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell for notifications. And definitely give this channel a thumbs up here, this video actually. And we'll tune in for this Wednesday, because AEW Dynamite returns Wednesday night, 8 p.m. And we're going to see CM Punk take on Bobby Fish. Should be a great matchup. All around, a great show for AEW Dynamite. But like I said, it was lacking. It was lacking at least one more women's match. They could have given us at least that. They could have given the women in that company at least that. But, that's me. So, have a great day. Have a great weekend. But for now, and as always, I'm out of here.